Right, so when you start, you've got your needle and you've got the knot on the end. I think I've got a knot on the end. Let me check that. Yeah, I've got a knot on the end. Yeah, check that when you take it out of your pin cushion, because you might not have done it. And then when you pull it through, it comes right out. Oh, it's a nuisance. Right, so I've got to decide where I want to start. Now, I know that this piece round here is going to have the same thread on it, but it's okay. I'm going to start there, and I'm going to go up and round this one. I'm going to come up there and round there and down there to there, and that's the outside of that. And then I'm going to go around that piece, and this is just the outside. All right, so pull it through to the knot. Now you can see my finger, this one is under there, but make sure this isn't in the way. I can't tell you how many times I've stitched that into the back. It's annoying, that, but you don't need to be doing that if you think what you're doing. Sometimes when you stick that in for the chain stitch, you'll find it won't go in very easily, but that's because you're sticking it into the knot. Now just pull the knot out a little bit so that it doesn't get in the way when you're sticking that in, like that. And then you come up. It's not all that important when you're going straight up a line like that. If you're going around a very tight bend, you need to do smaller stitches, but we'll come to that when we get there. Right, here we go. Now I hold, this is why it's nice to have a nice long thread, because you can get hold of this end with your thumb, keep it out of the way, stick it in, pull it up. So it's easy, and off you go. Just keep stitching around. Make sure you stick it in right where the other one comes out in that loop. If you're making a loop, see? It depends how tight you pull it as to how narrow, how close together the loops are. You don't want holes in the middle so you can see the holes, because we're using this as a filler stitch as well as going around the edge of it. It's so much quicker than doing satin stitch on a big piece, and it's nice and it shows up really well instead of stem stitch, because in some embroideries you do stem stitch on stems like this, but I like a nice chain stitch, and it is so easy to do. All right, here we go. Now I'm going up this side, around this bend, and you don't have to get every single stitch the same size either. Doesn't matter. Right, so we carry on stitching. Now when you use the thread quite quickly. Like I say, this distance here gets shorter and shorter really quickly, and you don't want to stitch two ends in. I'm going to show you what you do. I'll do another one. When you first put it in the needle, I like to bring it down quite a lot, probably about that distance. And then as you go along, you just do that and pull it, so your distance stays about the same. It saves the thread, and it saves you pulling it right out a long way every time. You use that method when you do speed edging for edges of quilts. We'll be showing that as well in the future, all sorts of different things. Right, here we go, carry on. Right, I'm coming up to the corner. Now this is something I really wanted to show you, because there's a method on the corner so it doesn't look loopy around the end. Also, depending on where you've got this, you can't put that so it's out of the way, because you keep turning it round as you machine. If you embroider different places, you're on different parts of the hoop and you can't keep moving that. Anyway, we're coming up to that corner now. So this is an important piece. I'm going to put 2 small stitches in there. All right, that's 1. Ooh. And 2. This one will be a bit longer. This is to get the point easier. And when you do that, you stick that back down in there, right on the end, like you're doing a lazy daisy chain, and that keeps it stable. And then if you can, stick your needle back up inside the loop again. And then you can carry on stitching. I'm going to turn the hoop around now so I can go up in the opposite direction, down. See how short this is compared with how long it was, and it's getting a bit twizzly. So what you do when it gets a bit twizzly, you hold it up and you let it untwizzle. You don't have to do that so much if you've got a longer thread either, which I like. Now here we go again. Back into that loop or somewhere in it. It's not that important to get that exactly right. And then back down the other way. Be careful of this. See, keep turning it. I've got right to the bottom now. I've stitched down that really quick, and when I get to the end there, what I like to do is to put the needle in a bit further down so it joins it in neatly. So look, lovely. Now you turn it over and do a few stitches. I usually do 3 or 4. Doesn't matter, just to finish it off. Stick my needle in. Ooh, all my threads here. Cut it off. Yeah. Pop that back in there for now. Show you. Right, these are the threads that I'm using. I'm going to go through that again now because I'm about to use the next colour, and that's the one I call the shade one because it makes it shade around the edge. These are the colours I'm using. They're not the ones that are in the kit, but if you want to use these, because you don't have the threads in the kit, you just have the numbers. The dark one is 936. Oh, they're DMC, by the way. I like DMC. It's got a nice sheen to it. So you've got 936 for the dark one. The shade one is 3363, and the light one is 522. Right, so here I am with the shade one.
Medium one.
It's the medium one, according to the pattern, apparently. So there we go. Now to start here, I'm going to go right into the corner at the bottom. I've got a knot in the end, and there isn't a knot there. The knot was at the bottom there. I think, yeah, it was. So that doesn't get in the way. You haven't got 2 knots. Right. So in there, and you do exactly the same now. You just go up round the edge, and you just keep doing this, even for the light centre one. Yeah. So easy. When you've done a few of these, you know exactly where to stick your needle up so that you've sort of just got a tiny bit in between. If you put it right up against the edge, it don't matter. If you get it too far apart and you've got a white or a light gap down there, you just go down it with some straight stitches. There's not a lot you can do wrong, really. And I do that. I mean, from time to time, and I'm sat watching the telly when I'm doing this, I don't stick the needle in exactly the right place. So you can sit and watch the telly. I mean, once you've stuck your needle in, like that, and up like that, you know where it is. And as you pull it through, you can look up at the television. Now, under my thumb, in, my fingers, and I've got both fingers up there now at the back, which is good. And just keep turning it round and doing it. I'm going to put two stitches, I think, in there. Whoops. Or you could do a longer one and then not put one in the corner. And I want you to see this exactly what I'm doing. In there like that. got it reasonably tight then, and then stick it in outside like I showed you on this one. Stick it in outside, and this is so easy to do this because you don't have to. You can just stick it in exactly as you did when you started on the bottom. You want it a bit further down, like that. There we are. Now turn your hoop round, and off we go again. The only problem with chain stitch is if you want to unpick it, it's not particularly easy to unpick, but you can do it. You just have to have a bit of patience, or chop it all off and start again, which is what I do sometimes. That's quicker and easier, and you don't use much thread, or you don't lose much thread. But it is so easy to do, you don't really need to worry about making mistakes much. I mean, when you've done a few thousand of these on a piece of embroidery, you're good at it. It's practice makes perfect, and you're practicing every stitch every time you do one. Into the bottom, right into the bottom. Now, do I need to put a stitch in there? Maybe not, or maybe. It depends on how you feel. I won't put a stitch in, then you can see what happens when you don't. You just put the needle in right into the bottom there and cast off. There you are. Fine. Not a gap there at all. And then turn it over, and I'll finish it off this side. It's got a bit of finishing off down there, so I don't want to put it one on top of the other. There we are. Easy. Right, so I've carried on stitching around this piece, this top piece, but I'm not going to leave that like that. I know I've cast off there, and it's not quite finished, that piece. And I've got a new piece of thread, and I showed you how to cast off and how to go on the outside and stick it down and then cast off. But when you're casting on again, it's ever so easy to do it, so you can't see what you've done. You just knot your thread the same as you did before, stick your needle up in the loop and carry on stitching. So there we go. I will put a little one in there. Ooh, I know you can see that. Sometimes it's not quite so easy to get it in, but it's fine. There we are, and I pull it quite tight so it fits in, and then see that? Push it down. Now, you might think, why on earth has she put one stitch in there with a new thread? Well, this leaf, if you look at it, this leaf has got a fold in it, and that side of the fold is shaded, so it's darker. So I'm going to carry on with this shading thread and fill that whole lot in with that. It makes it look real. So back up again the same as I did before. Then you can go around which way you like. You can either come back round this way, or I will do that because it's probably easier. Now this is real filling. I'm filling in with this. I'm not going around edges, I'm filling. So, there we go. And you see how neat that is, how nice and smooth it comes. I'm going to put a nice big stitch in there, and one into the corner, like I showed you before, and then start again, there, go back round that way. Now, you see there's a gap there. Well, I came up there and I can start again there with the loop and that will fill that in. There you go. Don't have to do that. I mean, if you'd fitted it in easier and better. These are all different shapes and sizes as you stitch around, but it really doesn't matter. And if you'd left a bit like that, sometimes I do, and when I look at it, I think, oh, I should have filled that in. I go back, I even cast on again and put a few stitches in to fill it up. So you can't really do it wrong. There we are. See how quick this is filling up? There's not much gap left now. Oh, and by the way, I haven't used this thread before. This is my first time using this colour on this. I do like it though. Now I'm going to do a nice long one in there and put a long stitch down that corner. There. Okay. Now, I think I'm going to come back around that top. I won't need much more to fill this in altogether. You know, just put a small stitch in there on that tighter end. Oh, stop it. This is something that will happen, and you just have to be a bit patient. Pull the right end so that you know which one's pulling it out. There we are. Try and keep it away. Wow. Look, that small piece I've got to do now. 2 stitches, I think, for that piece. Can you see that? And when you push your finger up there, you can see the gap better. Pushing this finger up there, I can see the gap better. Like that. 1 stitch. And 2 stitches. Sometimes it's only 1 stitch. You just got to fill it in as it happens. Right, and I've pulled that nicely tight and smoothed it out with my thumb. Then I've got to see where to stick that. Don't really matter. As long as it's outside the loop, it doesn't matter. Keeps it down. Yeah. Look at that. What's wrong with that? Nothing. I showed you how to fill that in. That's all beautifully filled in. And now I'm doing exactly the same on that one, but with a lighter thread. So you can see it's all shaded around the edge. I'm really pleased with these colours because that's the first time I've seen them done as well. Now with this piece here, because I showed you how to do this, you don't need me to go all through it again. I started there, and this is 1 length of thread, and I went up there, round there, did that corner bit on the top as I showed you, back down here, and then back up here. Now this is the vein on the leaf, and I do that with the chain stitch exactly the same, and I'll show you what I do at the top because it's a bit different, and I've used this idea a lot and it looks really good, I think. Right, so up to the top, 2 stitches. Probably that's enough, and then I put the last stitch in there, so I've got a nice thin bit at the top, so it looks like the top of the vein, so it goes narrow at the top. Look, And then when you fill in round it, it looks real. Now the next thing I'm going to do with this is to go around the edge on the inside again with the shading like I did on that one, and then fill the middle in. So I'm going to go around that with the shading, and I want to show you how I do the filling on a leaf with a vein in it, because it's a little bit different. I've done the inside row of the shading, and now I'm going to do the light colour. So I start again the same as I've done before. This is how you turn me poop round. Got a nice knot on the end, a nice long thread. Here we go. What you do when you've got a vein in there, you go right up the side of the vein to get the shape of the way the stitches go, because they look better if they go in the right direction. It looks more realistic and it looks neater. And how I found this all out is I've done lots of stitching before I finished this one. Done them in all sorts of different ways, and this I find is the best way. So of course you can do exactly what you want with it. You don't even have to do what I'm doing, filling in like this. You could just go around the edge with any stitch you wanted, but this I think looks lovely, so it's the way I do it. Right, go along the side, make sure you don't cover that piece up, that thin bit at the top there, but go right up to the top. See? Carry on going till you get to the corner at the top here. Into the corner. And then turn around and come back down the other side. Here we are. It's getting a bit loose, so I'm going to tighten it a bit. It is easier to get your tension right if it's tightish, and it will still bend up, look. I must say I find this easy to do when it's not being filmed, because I can waggle it around how I like, but while we're filming it I have to keep it sort of in the view. Nice long stitch there, look at that. Ooh. Pull it in, push your finger up, and then just tension it in, push that in there. So I'm very tempted to put this closer up and under my nose so I can see what I'm doing better, but I'm not allowed. Right, so now fill it in exactly how I filled that one in. And then once you've done that, I'll show you doing that, because it is quick and it looks clever. I think this looks clever. It's not difficult, but it does look lovely when you've done it. There's only one more row to do on this side now. See how quick that was? One more stitch in there, fill that in, give it a bit of attention. Down. And then Don't need another stitch, just straight down that time. That side's all filled in. And now all I'll do is I'll go down to the bottom and I'll come back up and do it exactly the same on the other side, and then that leaf's done. I've filled in the other half of that leaf in the same way as I did the other ones, and I've done that leaf round and filled that all in, so you can see, and that was quite quick and easy because it's smaller. Now I've done round the edge of the flower exactly how I've shown you before. One thread did all of that, all around there, and then I've got the shading one inside. Now when you do this bit here, if you remember, I told you to make the stitches very small when you're going around a bend, and that's what I've done there. If you can see, those stitches are tiny on that edge there. The only time you go round the edge like that is when you're doing the outer one and the shading. When you fill it in, you're going up and down, up and down, up and down, the same as you did on these. The middle one, I started with one down the middle, and then I went all up and down like that, each one up and down, filled that side in, and then I did the same the other side. It's much easier to get a neat finish on something like that if you make it symmetrical. Start in the middle and work to one side and then work to the other side. Now, the next thing I did was to use the palest green on that middle of that flower. I've done it in another way on another piece, my prototype, and it looked awful. It's much better done with that same colour in the middle. You can do whatever you like with yours, but that's what I found with mine. Again, on this edge here, smaller stitches, but you don't want to go round and round and round because it's not easy to go round those bends with the smaller stitches and get it level. Much easier to fill it in, and it looks better if you go backwards and forwards. So cross the middle again and then fill in this side the same as you did that one, and this side the same as you did the other side. Easy. That there it is, finished, that flower. I'm really pleased with that, and I love the colours because I haven't seen this until I've done it. So now I'm going to show you how to put the hoop on when it's already been I've already put that on once actually. You can't tell, can you? Now where's the outside of it? There it is. I want that part here so it doesn't get in the way when I'm stitching this way, and I want that flower and those flowers and that leaf in so that I can show you how to do the satin stitch on that leaf. So that's why I've put that where it is. Now what you do when you put the hoop back on, I put that on first so I don't mess it about, and then I bring this down and squeeze that until it goes in. And if I'm lucky, I haven't got the back tied in. Don't think I haven't done that, because I have. And then you have to start again. But, you know, keep it out of the way. And that's perfectly all right there. You can pull it, but I don't pull that as much as I do this part that hasn't got any embroidery in it. As you get further on, you'll find you've got loads more around there, and you'll need to undo this a bit to get it in right. And then if it's too loose, you just screw it up again with a screwdriver or whatever you'll need to tighten it.